We are here, High School Fantasy Football, man. We're here to talk about our underachievers for week 9. I'm talking about guys that were in our top 10 lineups, people thinking that, man, are going to go off and did not. I'm talking about out here laying us almost goose eggs. I mean, it was any given Sunday, man. It goes to show in NFL fantasy football, anything goes, okay? These guys were forecasted for huge games and straight laid duds. We're going to start off with one who was on my sit list last week, Geno Smith. He put up probably his worst game of his career in Seattle, threw up for 157 through the air, 1 interception, 1 fumble loss, gave you 3.68 fantasy points. Boy, did he underachieve. Hey, look, man, Geno's going to have better days, but Sunday was not it. Number 2 quarterback. Oh, this stung everybody because if you got him, you're starting him. Lamar Jackson. That's right. They had a day on the ground over there in Baltimore. That defense had their way with Geno Smith. And it showed because Lamar Jackson threw up 187 in the air. He had 10 rushes for 60 yards and a fumble loss. Ended up with 11.48 fantasy points in standard scoring. Listen, obviously it's going to be better days for Lamar, but he will have these games where that running game just gets going and Gus Edwards goes off for 3 touchdowns. So those games are going to be there. Having them back-to-back is unfortunate. It is. Those back-to-back games, Lamar Jackson did absolutely nothing. But he will have those games where he throws 300 through the air, 100 on the ground, and 4 or 5 touchdowns. So you got to play for that high floor and that big game win. He can win or he can lose your week. Number 3, our number 1 running back off the board this week, Kenneth Walker. Oh, he has been absolutely a monster this year. But in week 9, humble yourself, young man. Kenneth Walker goes off for 9 rushes, 16 yards, 1 reception, 1 yard for 2.2 fantasy points. Come on, man. It was running backs out there that got the ball 3 times that put up the more points than that. Kenneth Walker's going to have better days. Seattle's offense is going to have better days, but not this week. Good Lord. Next off and this is going to kill y'all because I know it's burning me up. Have Bijan Robinson again has a dismal day. 11 rushes, 51 yards, 2 receptions, 8 yards, and a fumble to give us 4.9 fantasy points out of Bijan, a guy who went in the first round of fantasy drafts this year. Look, man, it's got to be better days for this guy, but this weekend was not it. They got to sit down, and that offensive coordinator has to sit down with that offense and figure out what they are going to do to get this thing turned around. It's looking bad for Bijan, and his stock right now is going down. James Cook is our 3rd running back for underachievers this week, man. James Cook was supposed to be that guy, and you give him the ball 6 times for 20 yards, 4 receptions for 19 yards, man, had 5.9 fantasy points in a game where he should have had a lot more. Latavius Murray is getting work. They just traded and got Leonard Fournette. Man, I'm down on James Cook right now, man. He's going to be a sit for me from here on out unless I have no other option. Number 6 on our underachievers list, and which is going to be our number 1 receiver off the list, was George Pickens. Oh, my God. I know y'all was starting George Pickens. I know it. He is not nearly a better receiver than Deontay Johnson. He may have better hands, but he can't create separation. And it showed. Listen, George Pickens had 2 receptions this week for -1 yards, 0.9 fantasy points. Hey, look, man, that quarterback is okay over there. That offense is pedestrian. Deontay Johnson knows how to create separation. He can get open. That quarterback's going to be throwing to Deontay Johnson 14 times a game. George Pickens may get 7 targets. He's not going to be the guy y'all thought he was. He could have been, but not with Deontay in that game. Looks like they got their rushing game together. It's getting better and better. It always does. It's ramping up at the end of the season. Listen, man, George Pickens, I'm out on him. He may be a matchup play. They have it going against a terrible secondary, but that quarterback, Kenny Pickett, is not getting him that rock. So George Pickens' stock value is going down. Get him on your benches. Hey, man, another guy who's supposed to have a big game but didn't, and it's because his quarterback didn't, was Zay Flowers. Man, Zay Flowers had 1 reception for 11 yards this week, 1.6 fantasy points out of Zay. Look, Zay Flowers is going to have better days. He's their home run guy. But if Lamar ain't hitting on nothing, Zay Flowers ain't hitting on nothing. You heard it here first. Hey, Chris Godwin will be our last receiver off our underachievers list. Chris Godwin goes off for 2 receptions for 16 yards, 2.6 fantasy points. That is not where you drafted him. Chris Godwin has been hit or miss all year long. He's been on a lot of my bench for the week. Bench him. I think I've done starts and sits for 9 weeks now. He's been in at least 4 more of my bench him this week list. Hey, look, man, Mike Evans is the man over there. He's the go-to guy. Baker's feeling Mike way more than he's feeling Chris. It is what it is, man. For you Chris Godwin lovers, hey, man, hopefully you guys see better days. I don't have no stock in them. Got 23 leagues. Got Chris Godwin in 0. Yeah. And this one was the head scratcher of the week. Tight end Travis Kelce with 2.9 fantasy points, 3 receptions for 14 yards on 4 targets. No one was expecting that. Everybody was sick to their stomach. Travis Kelce owners, obviously, you're going to have better days. Sorry for you in week 9. Hey, Trey McBride. Everybody was running out getting Trey McBride. Hey, I'm one of them. Started him in a league that I needed him. Needed a tight end. Had one off. I think it was Evan Ingram was out this week. Man, started Trey McBride. Got me 3 receptions for 22 yards. Nobody wanted to see that. Coming off of 14 targets, and you get 3.7 fantasy points. Come on, Trey McBride. But Kyler Murray will be back. Looks like Ertz is out for basically the rest of the fantasy season. McBride will have better days, so I'm not saying bench him. Look, those were your underachievers. Lots of big names for this week. Obviously, it's going to be like that week in and week out because it's any given Sunday. It's your boy Hot Soup. Those are your unders for week 9. Go check us out on our next episode of our overachievers for week 9. You can also come check us out for I Told You So. I'm going to be putting that up real soon. And then I'll have your top 5 starts, top 5 sits for week 10 later on this week. Go like us on YouTube, like and subscribe. Go check me out on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Always ask questions. I'll chime in within 24 hours and give you an answer. Appreciate all my followers. Like and subscribe, and I holla.